From the time she was 8, Ada always saw Bisi as the big sister she never had. If Ada wasn't at Bisi's house after school, Bisi was at hers. Their mothers used to joke that they might as well adopt each other's daughter. They braided each other's hair, swapped snacks, wore matching clothes, and shared secrets as naturally as breathing. When Ada had her first crush in secondary school, it was Bisi who knew before anyone else. Every time a boy showed interest, Bisi was the first to hear about it. "He said I look like Genevieve," Ada would whisper, giggling. "You think he's serious?" And Bisi would always smile and say, "Let's see how long he lasts." Ada thought it was just playful teasing. But something odd kept happening. Ada noticed a strange pattern. Each time a boy who liked her got close enough to meet Bisi, he would later warn her with furrowed brows and hesitant voices. "Be careful with your friend," they'd say. "There's something off about her." One even said, "I think she envies you." But Ada always brushed it off. "You just don't know her like I do," she'd say, defending Bisi. "She's my sister." She believed people were just misreading Bisi's reserved nature, or perhaps threatened by how close the two of them were. That trust was unshakable, until the message that changed everything. It was Tund who broke the illusion. He was based in Kotsina, and they were doing long distance. One weekend he called Ada and said, "Can you log into my Facebook? I need you to see something." Confused but curious, Ada agreed. As she scrolled through his inbox, her eyes landed on Bisi's name. Her heart skipped. The chat was recent. "Hey," Bisi had written. "Can you come over? I really need to talk to you." "It's urgent," Tund replied. "If I'm traveling all the way to Zaria, I'm definitely coming to see Ada. I can't come to your place without her." What Bisi typed next felt like a knife. "I don't want you to marry Ada," she had written. No hello, no hesitation. Just that. Tund had responded with confusion. "Why? What's going on?" And Bisi's explanation. "She has anger issues." Ada stared at the screen in disbelief, her mouth dry. She kept scrolling. Tund had asked, "How long have you known her?" Bisi replied, "Since we were kids." He asked again, "If she's really that bad, why have you stayed close to her for 25 years? That time there was no reply. She had gone silent. Tund ended the chat with a single message. "You're not a good person." Ada closed the app, numb. Her fingers trembled as she set down her phone. Her world tilted slightly. It wasn't the words that hurt the most. It was who they came from. Bisi. The same girl who had held her hand when her father died. The one who once spent an entire week nursing her through malaria. Ada felt betrayed in a way she couldn't put into words. But she didn't confront Bisi. She didn't even mention it. She simply said, "Thank you" to Tund and carried on like nothing had happened. Quietly, she distanced herself. Just a little. Eventually, Ada broke up with Tund. Not because of Bisi, but because life had other plans. A few months after the Facebook incident, Tund confessed that he had gotten another woman pregnant. "It was a mistake," he pleaded over the phone. "It didn't mean anything." But Ada didn't even argue. Her silence said everything. She ended the call with a calm, "Take care of your child," and never looked back. That heartbreak was heavy, but what stuck in her mind more than Tund's betrayal was how Bisi had planted seeds of doubt long before the fall. Still, Ada told herself it was just a one-time thing. Maybe Bisi was just going through something. But then it happened again. The second guy Ada dated, Deo, was a kind, soft-spoken man who always listened more than he spoke. He noticed Bisi's attitude right away. One evening after dinner he said quietly, "Your friend doesn't like me." Ada frowned. "What makes you say that?" Deo hesitated. "She messaged me." Ada blinked. "She what?" He nodded. "She asked who I was and how serious we were. When I said we were in a relationship, she told me we should both go to hell. Then she blocked me." Ada's heart sank. Again. Why? The air between Ada and Bisi began to change. Where there used to be warmth, there was now something cold and distant. But Ada didn't confront her. She didn't know how to. Every time she looked at Bisi, memories of their childhood would flood her mind. The sleepovers, the tears, the inside jokes. So instead of reacting, Ada buried her feelings. She told herself maybe Bisi was just protective or misunderstood. But a quiet ache had started growing inside her. She was beginning to feel like her heart was a locked box Bisi kept trying to pick open, only to break whatever was inside. 3 more relationships followed. Each time Ada shared the news with Bisi, the excitement in her voice would die within 2 or 3 weeks. Every single time the relationship fell apart. Once it was a sudden breakup without explanation. Another time the guy said he was confused and needed space. Ada began to suspect something was wrong, not with the men but with the pattern. She never had proof, but the timing was always too sharp, too precise. That's when Ada stopped talking about her love life entirely. Not just to Bisi but to anyone. Instead she turned to God. Ada started waking up at midnight to pray. She fasted. She read the Psalms like medicine. If anything is hiding in plain sight, she prayed, expose it. And if I'm the problem, show me. There were no visions, no dramatic revelations. But there was peace. And in that peace, Ada made a decision. Next time love found her, she would guard it like fire in the rain. No announcements, no group chats, no stories. When Chijioke came into her life, she told no one. Not even Bisi. Not one word. Chijioke was different from anyone Ada had ever met. He didn't just ask about her favorite color. He noticed how her voice changed when she talked about children, or how she always ordered the same drink but never finished it. They met at a workshop in Abuja. He was quiet, observant, and spoke with a calmness that made Ada feel steady. For the first time in a long while she felt safe. Still she kept him to herself. When her sister asked, "You're glowing, who's the guy?" Ada would laugh and say, "Maybe it's just good skincare." But inside she was protecting something fragile and precious. Months passed. Chijioke met her family. He got along with her younger siblings, especially her brother Nonso, who joked, "Finally, someone who doesn't run at the first sign of our madness." They talked about the future in whispers at night, after prayer. And when he proposed, it was simple. No cameras, no crowd. Just the 2 of them on a quiet evening with candles and a soft breeze. Ada said yes through happy tears. They agreed to keep everything small and private until after the introduction. "No noise," Chijioke said. "Let's build before we broadcast." Ada nodded. She was more than ready for that. In November, their families gathered for the formal introduction. It was a warm, laughter-filled day with jollof rice, gifts, prayers, and blessings. Ada's mother wore her best wrapper and danced like her feet didn't know sorrow. Everyone was happy, except one person who wasn't even there. Bisi. She had no idea any of it was happening. Ada hadn't told her. She didn't even consider it. She didn't want to risk losing this the way she had lost others. It felt strange to keep something so important from the person who had once been her closest friend. But it also felt necessary. Then came the WhatsApp status. One of Ada's cousins had posted a group photo from the introduction. Bisi saw it. Within minutes she messaged Ada. "Bisi, what's going on?" Ada's heart thumped. She hesitated, then typed back. "Ada, it was my introduction." She followed it up with a call. Bisi didn't pick. Ada called again. And again. Nothing. 10 minutes later, her number was blocked. Then her backup number. Even her work line. Ada stared at her phone, blinking. "So that's it," she whispered. "Just like that." Confused, Ada reached out to Mama Kike, a family friend who had always treated both girls like daughters. She explained what happened and asked if she could help talk to Bisi. A few days later, Mama Kike called back, sounding weary. "I spoke to her," she said. "She's hurt. She says you betrayed her." Ada was quiet. Then Mama Kike added. She kept asking, "Why didn't she tell me she was in a relationship? Why did I have to see it online?" Ada sighed. "I didn't mean to hurt her. I needed to protect this one." "She's angry," Mama Kike said softly. But it's not the kind of anger that comes from love. It's bitterness. Ada swallowed. What did she say exactly? There was a pause. She said, let her go to hell. It's not like she's the first person to get married. The words sat heavy in the air. Oh, Ada whispered. She didn't cry. She just nodded slowly, even though Mama Kite couldn't see her. Thank you for trying. That night, Ada lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The girl who used to braid her hair had finally shown her the full shape of her heart, and it was not gentle. The silence between them stretched into months. Ada still sent the occasional message. Old habits die hard. Just checking in, she'd write. Hope you're well. Bisi would read it but never reply. Not even a thumbs up. Her profile picture changed to inspirational quotes about betrayal and fake people. Ada got the message loud and clear. She didn't try again. Her wedding date approached, and though Bisi had once been her first choice for chief bridesmaid, she removed her from the plan entirely. Her younger sister, Amaka, filled the spot. Are you sure about this? Her mother asked. Ada nodded. Completely. April came like a sunrise. The wedding was beautiful, intimate, colorful, full of dancing and prayers. Ada wore a flowing lace gown with coral beads in her hair. Chijioke looked at her like she was a prayer come true. During the reception, Amaka pulled her aside and whispered, You made the right call. Ada smiled. I know. The absence of Bisi was like a gap in a familiar song, but the music still played on, full and strong. That night, as Ada looked around at her new family, she whispered to herself, I did the right thing. I chose peace. Days turned into weeks. The wedding excitement faded, but peace remained. Ada settled into married life with a heart that no longer tiptoed around betrayal. One evening, while folding laundry, she looked at an old framed photo of herself and Bisi from secondary school. They were both laughing, ice cream in hand, eyes full of trust. Ada didn't feel rage or sorrow, just distance. The kind of distance that comes not from hate, but from growth. Some people walk with you forever. Others were only meant for a season, even if that season was 25 years long. Chijioke noticed the photo on the shelf. That's her, he asked gently. Ada nodded. Yeah. He studied the picture for a moment. You miss her. Ada took a breath. I miss who I thought she was. He didn't push. He just pulled her into a hug. You didn't lose a friend, he said. You found out who wasn't one. Ada smiled into his shoulder. Maybe that's what growth is. Not just adding people, but learning who no longer fits. And in that quiet room surrounded by folded clothes and flickering candlelight, she let go, for real this time. Ada didn't delete Bisi's number. She just stopped using it. It remained there in her contacts, like an old photograph in a drawer, kept but no longer revisited. Life began to fill with other things. Work deadlines, grocery runs, late-night gist with Chijioke, and learning how to share space without losing her mind. Marriage wasn't a fairy tale, but it was honest. And Ada liked honest. Some nights, she would sit quietly with a cup of tea, wondering what Bisi told herself. Did she think Ada had betrayed her? Did she truly believe that friendship came with ownership? Why do you look so serious? Chijioke would ask when he caught her in those moments. Ada would smile and shake her head. Just thinking. He always left it there. Never pried. That too was something she treasured. The freedom to think without being interrogated. But one night, as she scrolled through old photos on her phone, she stumbled upon a video. Her 27th birthday. Bisi was leading the birthday song, laughing so hard she almost dropped the cake. They were surrounded by friends, dancing barefoot in the compound. Ada watched the video twice, then quietly pressed delete. Not out of hate, but because she was done holding on to ghosts. A few months after the wedding, Ada ran into someone who brought the past rushing back. It was Muna, one of Bisi's cousins. They met at a supermarket, both reaching for the same pack of cereal. Ada! Muna gasped. You're married now. I saw pictures. Ada laughed. Yes, oh. Time flies. They exchanged a warm hug. Muna looked hesitant, then asked, Have you spoken to Bisi lately? Ada's smile faltered just a little. No. It's been a while. She doesn't really talk about you anymore, Muna said. But she kept the bridesmaid dress. Still has it in her wardrobe. That small detail sat strangely with Ada. The bridesmaid dress. Bisi had never even replied to the message about the color and style. She kept it? Ada asked. Muna nodded. Yeah, I don't know why. She said she wasn't coming to the wedding, but she never threw the dress out either. Ada stood there for a second, unsure of what to feel. Bitterness. Pity. Closure. Anyway, Muna said quickly, sensing the awkwardness. It's good to see you. You look really happy. I am, Ada said sincerely. Take care of yourself, Muna. You too. And just like that, the past returned to the shelf. That night, Ada told Chijioke about the encounter. She still has the bridesmaid dress, she said, angry. Half laughing, Mama half Kike said softly. He raised an eyebrow. But it's not the kind of anger that comes from love. Maybe she thought she'd wear it eventually. Bitterness. Ada chuckled. Swallowed. Maybe. What did she say exactly? Or maybe it's just easier to hold on to what she lost than admit she let it go. Let her go to hell. Reached for her hand. It's not like she's the first person to get married. You protected your peace. The words sat heavy in the air. That's nothing to feel guilty about. Ada whispered. Ada nodded, she didn't cry. She just nodded slowly. A question still lingered, even though like Mama Kike couldn't see her. How does someone stay close to you for over 2 decades and still wish for your downfall? Ada lay in bed, staring at the Sunday at church during the sermon. The girl who used to braid her hair had finally shown her the full shape of her heart. Some relationships don't end because they were evil. The silence between them stretched because God wants to clear space for the next season of your life. Don't fight his habits die hard. Let the dead leaves checking fall. In, she'd write. Ada sat still, hope your arms folded, Bisi would read it, but never as the choir began to sing, not even a thumbs up. Eyes filled with her tears. Profile picture not changed sorrow, to inspirational quotes about betrayal and fake quietly. Ada got the message for exposing what I couldn't see. She didn't try again. Thank you for protecting what I almost gave away. And though Bisi had once been her first time she truly forgave Bisi, she removed her from the plan entirely. Forgiveness her younger sister, Amaka, filled the spot. It didn't mean inviting her back. Are you sure about this? Ada understood her mother asked. Some people come into your life to show you your own boundaries. April came like a sunrise. They teach you not through kindness, the wedding was through pain. Intimate, colorful, full of dancing and prayers. Ada wore a flowing lace gown with coral beads in her hair. Chijioke looked at her like she was a prayer come true. During the reception, Amaka pulled her aside and whispered, "You made the right call." Ada smiled. "I know." The absence of Bisi was like a gap in a familiar song, but the music still played on, full and strong. That night, as Ada looked around at her new family, she whispered to herself, "I did the right thing. I chose peace." Days turned into weeks. The wedding excitement faded, but peace remained. Ada settled into married life with a heart that no longer tiptoed around betrayal. One evening, while folding laundry, she looked at an old framed photo of herself and Bisi from secondary school. They were both laughing, ice cream in hand, eyes full of trust. Ada didn't feel rage or sorrow, just distance. The kind of distance that comes not from hate, but from growth. Some people walk with you forever. Others were only meant for a season, even if that season was 25 years long. Chijioke noticed the photo on the shelf. "That's her?" he asked gently. Ada nodded. "Yeah." He studied the picture for a moment. "You miss her?" Ada took a breath. "I miss who I thought she was." He didn't push. He just pulled her into a hug. "You didn't lose a friend," he said. "You found out who wasn't one." Ada smiled into his shoulder. Maybe that's what growth is. Not just adding people, but learning who no longer fits. And in that quiet room surrounded by folded clothes and flickering candlelight, she let go, for real this time. Ada didn't delete Bisi's number. She just stopped using it. It remained there in her contacts, like an old photograph in a drawer. Kept, but no longer revisited. Life began to fill with other things. Work deadlines, grocery runs, late-night gist with Chijioke, and learning how to share space without losing her mind. Marriage wasn't a fairy tale, but it was honest. And Ada liked honest. Some nights, she would sit quietly with a cup of tea, wondering what Bisi told herself. Did she think Ada had betrayed her? Did she truly believe that friendship came with ownership? Why do you look so serious? Chijioke would ask when he caught her in those moments. Ada would smile and shake her head. Just thinking. He always left it there. Never pried. That too was something she treasured. The freedom to think without being interrogated. But one night, as she scrolled through old photos on her phone, she stumbled upon a video. Her 27th birthday. Bisi was leading the birthday song, laughing so hard she almost dropped the cake. They were surrounded by friends, dancing barefoot in the compound. Ada watched the video twice, then quietly pressed delete. Not out of hate, but because she was done holding on to ghosts. A few months after the wedding, Ada ran into someone who brought the past rushing back. It was Muna, one of Bisi's cousins. They met at a supermarket, both reaching for the same pack of cereal. Ada, Muna gasped. You're married now. I saw pictures. Ada laughed. Yes, oh. Time flies. They exchanged a warm hug. Muna looked hesitant, then asked, Have you spoken to Bisi lately? Ada's smile faltered just a little. No. It's been a while. She doesn't really talk about you anymore, Muna said. But she kept the bridesmaid dress. Still has it in her wardrobe. That small detail sat strangely with Ada. The bridesmaid dress. Bisi had never even replied to the message about the color and style. She kept it? Ada asked. Muna nodded. Yeah, I don't know why. She said she wasn't coming to the wedding, but she never threw the dress out either. Ada stood there for a second, unsure of what to feel. Bitterness. Pity. Closure. Anyway, Muna said quickly, sensing the awkwardness. It's good to see you. You look really happy. I am, Ada said sincerely. Take care of yourself, Muna. You too. And just like that, the past returned to the shelf. That night, Ada told Chijioke about the encounter. She still has the bridesmaid dress, she said, half laughing, half confused. He raised an eyebrow. Maybe she thought she'd wear it eventually. Ada chuckled. Maybe. Or maybe it's just easier to hold on to what she lost than admit she let it go. Chijioke reached for her hand. You did the right thing, Ada. You protected your peace. That's nothing to feel guilty about. Ada nodded, grateful. But deep down, a question still lingered like mist. How does someone stay close to you for over 2 decades and still wish for your downfall? The next Sunday at church, during the sermon, the pastor spoke about pruning. Some relationships don't end because they were evil, he said. They end because God wants to clear space for the next season of your life. Don't fight his pruning. Let the dead leaves fall. Ada sat still, arms folded, heart heavy. As the choir began to sing, her eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow but of release. She whispered a prayer quietly. Thank you for exposing what I couldn't see. Thank you for protecting what I almost gave away. That was the first time she truly forgave Bisi, from a distance. Forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It didn't mean inviting her back. Ada understood that now. Some people come into your life to show you your own boundaries. They teach you not through kindness but through pain. Ada started journaling again, something she hadn't done since university. In one entry she wrote, Bisi, I loved you like a sister. And maybe you loved me too, in your own way. But whatever it was, it stopped being safe. I hope you find healing. I've found mine. She closed the book, slid it into her drawer, and went on with her day. One afternoon, while hosting a small lunch with her cousins, someone brought up friendship. Do you still talk to your childhood bestie? Nena asked, sipping Zobo. Ada smiled gently. Not anymore. Why? Ada paused. Because friendship is supposed to feel like home. And sometimes the house changes. The foundation cracks. You have to leave before the roof falls on your head. There was a moment of silence, then quiet nods around the table. Damn, one cousin muttered. That was deep. Ada just shrugged. Sometimes it's not about drama, just about peace. After lunch, Ada received a message on Instagram from a mutual friend. Have you and Bisi made up yet? She stared at it for a long moment. Then she typed back. No, we've both just moved on. That was the truth. There were no fights left. No explanations needed. Just two women on separate paths now. And that was okay. Ada no longer felt the need to defend herself, or prove anything. The people who mattered knew the truth. And the ones who didn't. They were not her assignment. As her first anniversary approached, Ada thought about the kind of legacy she wanted to build. Not just in marriage but in all relationships. She wanted honesty. Reciprocity. One evening, while watching the sunset from their balcony, Chijioke asked, "What do you think was the turning point for you?" Ada smiled. "The moment I realized not everyone who grows with you is meant to go with you." He nodded slowly. "That's a hard lesson. But a necessary one," Ada said. "And I thank God I learned it before it cost me everything." And with that, she exhaled deeply, letting the past stay in the past. Ada didn't just grow emotionally. She grew spiritually too. Her midnight prayers became less about protection from people and more about thanksgiving. "Thank you for teaching me discernment," she often prayed. "Thank you for the peace I used to beg for." One night, during a women's fellowship meeting, she shared her testimony. Not naming names, just telling her truth. "I used to think loyalty meant silence," she said. "But sometimes silence becomes self-betrayal. If someone keeps hurting you in private, your loyalty to them shouldn't outweigh your loyalty to your own well-being." A hush fell over the room. Someone whispered, "God bless you for saying that." After that meeting, an older woman approached Ada. "My dear," she said, "your story is mine, just with different faces. I lost 10 years of my life trying to keep a friendship that was poisoning me." Ada listened, humbled. "We're taught to endure everything, but not everything is meant to be endured. Some things are meant to be escaped." Ada nodded slowly. "I think I'm finally starting to understand that." The woman smiled. "Then you're already ahead of most." They hugged tightly, both of them feeling lighter. Sometimes healing doesn't come in a miracle. It comes in a conversation. Meanwhile, Bisi's silence remained. No apology. No attempt to reach out. Ada didn't expect one anymore. A part of her had wondered if, maybe after seeing the wedding pictures, Bisi would send a message. A simple congratulations. But none came. And oddly enough, that silence made things easier. "I don't want forced peace," Ada told Amaka one afternoon. "I want real peace. The kind that doesn't depend on someone else's change of heart." Amaka grinned. "Sister, you've become a whole therapist now." Ada laughed. "Life will teach you if you let it." And she had one hard lesson at a time. Later that week, Ada sorted through old boxes in her childhood bedroom. Her mother had asked her to help clear out some space. Inside a dusty shoebox, she found folded letters from secondary school. Most were from Bisi. Long, bubbly messages written in glitter pen. "You're my best friend forever. Nothing can ever break us." Ada smiled sadly, her fingers brushing the edges of the paper. She didn't cry. She didn't burn the letters either. She simply folded them back, placed them in the box, and wrote a note on top. "Thank you for the memories. I release you now." As she left the room, Ada met her mother in the hallway. "Still keeping old things?" Mama asked playfully. "Some," Ada replied. "But only what serves me." Mama nodded slowly. "That's wisdom. Even Jesus left places that didn't receive him." Ada stopped and blinked. "Wait, what?" Mama laughed. "Yes now. He didn't argue with everyone. He shook the dust off his feet and kept moving. Not everyone is meant to walk the whole road with you." Ada stared at her mother, stunned. "You should be the one giving sermons." Mama winked. "Life already gave me mine." They both laughed until tears ran down their cheeks. By the end of that year, Ada had begun mentoring young women at her church. She didn't share her entire story, but bits of it came through, especially when someone asked about toxic friendships. "You can love someone deeply and still need to love them from afar," she told one young lady. "Distance is not always punishment. Sometimes it's protection." The girl blinked through tears. "But how do you stop missing them?" Ada smiled gently. By remembering that the version you miss never really existed. That was your hope, not the reality. The girl nodded slowly. Healing had begun. Sometimes people would ask Ada if she hated Bisi now. Her answer was always the same. No, I don't hate her. I just finally love myself more. They would often look surprised. But it was the truth. Hatred required too much energy. And Ada had long stopped investing in things that drained her spirit. Bisi wasn't evil, she was broken. But her brokenness didn't excuse the damage she caused. And Ada. She wasn't bitter. She was better. Not perfect. Not untouched. But better. Because she had finally stopped watering a dead plant. And started growing her own garden. On the first anniversary of her wedding, Ada and Chijioke took a quiet trip to Obudu. No phones. No social media. Just the two of them, a cabin in the hills, and long conversations over pepper soup and palm wine. One night, Chijioke looked at her and said, "You're lighter than when I met you." Ada smiled. "I think I finally let go of carrying people who refused to walk with me." He nodded. "I noticed." They clinked glasses and said nothing more. Because sometimes the deepest healing doesn't need words. Just needs peace and someone who sees you. Back in town, Ada ran into someone who knew both her and Bisi back in the day. They exchanged greetings and the person said casually, "You and Bisi were goals back then. What happened?" Ada paused, then said calmly, "Life happened. And it taught me how to choose peace over history." The person raised a brow. "Wow. That's deep." "It's honest," Ada said. "That's what matters most to me now." As she walked away, she felt no need to explain further. Closure isn't always about confrontation. Sometimes it's just choosing not to bleed from the same wound twice. At home that night, Ada opened her prayer journal again. She wrote just one line. "Thank you, God, for the doors you closed. They saved me." She put down the pen and curled up next to Chijioke, who was already half asleep. He stirred. "You okay?" "I am," she whispered, smiling. "For the first time in a long time, I really am." Outside, the wind rustled softly against the windows. Inside, her heart was still. Not because everything made sense, but because Ada had finally chosen herself, and that was more than enough. Months passed, and Ada no longer flinched when she heard Bisi's name. It came up now and then, in church circles, at weddings, sometimes from old classmates. Each time, Ada would nod politely and steer the conversation elsewhere. She didn't ask, "How is she?" She didn't wonder. The curiosity had faded like fog under sunlight. One day, during a friend's baby shower, someone mentioned that Bisi had started a business. "Oh really?" Ada said with a small smile. "Good for her." And she meant it. Not sarcastically. Not bitterly. Just sincerely, because growth had erased the need for competition. That night Amaka called Ada. "Guess who I bumped into today?" "Who?" "Bisi." Ada paused. "Oh." She looked, well, but quiet. Ada leaned back in her chair. "Did she say anything?" "She asked how you were. I told her you were doing great." "And?" Amaka hesitated. "She didn't say much else. Just nodded. But I could tell she wanted to ask more." Ada sighed softly. "She always had a hard time saying sorry." Amaka laughed lightly. "And you always had a hard time letting go. But look at you now." "Yeah," Ada said, smiling faintly. "Look at me now." The next morning Ada woke up feeling calm. She didn't dream about the past. No uneasy feelings. No heaviness. She made breakfast with gospel music playing in the background, and while flipping plantains she thought, "If Bisi ever reaches out, I won't be angry. But I won't go back either." It was a peaceful kind of boundary. Not a wall, but a line drawn in clarity. Some friendships aren't meant to be rekindled. They're meant to be respected, for the role they played. Nothing more. Nothing less. That Sunday, the guest preacher shared a sermon that felt too personal to ignore. "Sometimes," he said, "God removes people to protect your purpose. You may cry now, but one day you'll say, Thank you, Lord, for not letting me stay attached to what was stunting my growth. Ada felt something settle in her spirit. She whispered, I hear you. After the service, Chijioke asked, You okay? She nodded, just reminded that everything that didn't work out had to not work out. He squeezed her hand. Even the painful ones. Especially those, she said. Back home, Ada opened a new page in her journal and titled it, Lessons I Paid For. She wrote, Trust your spirit even when your heart resists. Silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it's suppression. You can outgrow people without hating them. Jealousy wears many faces, even friendly ones. Closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's just peace. She closed the book and smiled. I think I've healed, she whispered to herself. Not because it stopped hurting entirely, but because it no longer controlled her joy. Weeks later, Ada got a message request on Facebook. She stared at it for a full minute before opening it. It was from Bisi. Just one line. I hope you're doing well. Ada blinked. No long story. No apology. No explanations. Just that. She didn't know what to feel. There was no anger, no joy. Just a soft kind of numbness. After a few minutes, she typed, I hope you are too. Then she hit send. That was all she had to give. And surprisingly, it was enough. Chijioke found her on the balcony that evening, staring into the orange sky. You okay? Yeah, Ada said. She messaged me. Bisi. What did she say? Just asked if I was doing well. He looked at her carefully. And how do you feel? Ada shrugged. Like someone knocked on a door I no longer live behind. He smiled. That's deep. It's just the truth. She leaned into him. And they stood there in silence, letting the breeze say everything words couldn't. From that day forward, Ada never heard from Bisi again. No follow-up message. No calls. And that was okay. It didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like finality. Like both women had come to the edge of a road and chosen to walk different paths. And maybe that's all that was ever meant to happen. There was no need to force a reunion. Some stories don't have dramatic conclusions. They just fade quietly. And in their quiet ending they still teach. Years passed. Ada built a beautiful life. Not perfect but full. She started a women's support group called Peace Over History. Women came with stories of broken friendships, silent betrayals, and silent healing. Ada would say, You're not foolish for loving deeply. But you are wise for walking away when love turned into harm. One day, a young woman raised her hand. How do you stop feeling guilty for leaving someone you once called your best friend? Ada smiled. You remember this. Protecting your peace is never betrayal. It's self-respect. The room was silent. Then, slowly, heads began to nod. On her 5th wedding anniversary, surrounded by friends, laughter, and light, Ada gave a short toast. To growth, she said. To peace. And to learning that sometimes the people who hurt you most were once the people you loved most. And that's okay. You can forgive them, bless them, and still keep your distance. Chijioke raised his glass. To choosing peace. Everyone echoed. To peace. And as the music played and the stars blinked overhead, Ada felt the final thread of guilt snap quietly inside her. Not with pain. With freedom. After the anniversary celebration, Ada sat alone for a few minutes on the back porch. The laughter inside faded into the background, and all she could hear was the hum of insects and the wind brushing through the trees. She looked up at the sky, her hands resting gently on her lap. I survived what almost broke me, she whispered. And not just survived, I became better. It wasn't pride she felt. It was peace. The kind that didn't need approval or applause. The kind that blooms when a woman chooses herself, without apology. A few weeks later, Ada hosted a writing retreat for women. During a quiet journaling session, one of the attendees asked, How do you write about someone you used to love but can't trust anymore? Ada thought for a moment, then said, You write with honesty. Not bitterness. Not flattery. Just truth. You write what happened, how it made you feel, and how you healed. You don't need to make them a villain or yourself a victim. Just tell the truth. That's enough. The room fell silent again. Pens scratched against paper. And Ada smiled. She had lived her truth. Now she was helping others do the same. One afternoon, while clearing old files on her laptop, Ada found a photo album labeled, "Sisters Forever." She hesitated before opening it. Inside were pictures of her and Bisi. Birthdays, beach trips, sleepovers, and sea days. They were young, full of life, arms wrapped around each other like nothing could touch them. Ada didn't cry. She smiled. "We had good times," she whispered. "And I'll keep the good. But I'm not going back." With one click, she moved the album into a separate folder. She didn't delete it. She just made space for the woman she was now. On the way home from church one Sunday, Chijioke turned to Ada and said, "I've been meaning to ask, do you ever think you and Bisi might talk again someday?" Ada paused, thoughtful. "Maybe. But not to fix anything. Just to acknowledge what was. If it happens, it'll be on new terms. Not the old ones that cost me peace." He nodded. "I respect that. And if it never happens," Ada added, "that's okay too. Some stories are meant to end quietly." They held hands the rest of the ride home, the silence between them warm and whole. The support group grew steadily. Women from all over started writing in, attending meetings, sharing stories they'd carried for years in silence. Betrayal by friends, envy wrapped in kindness, unspoken pain. One woman said, "I thought I was the only one." Ada replied, "You never were. You were just quiet in the wrong rooms." They all laughed softly. But it was the kind of laugh that meant, "We get it. We see each other now." Ada looked around the circle and thought, this is what Bisi's absence gave me. Space to create something healing. One evening, Ada received an anonymous delivery. Inside was a small, cream-colored box. No note. Just a folded fabric, an osoabi wrapper in her wedding color. The same one the bridesmaids wore. Her fingers traced the edge slowly. "Bisi," she whispered, not as a question, but as a knowing. She didn't call. Didn't text. Didn't post about it. Instead, she walked into her room, placed the fabric in her memory chest, and said aloud, "I forgive you. I release you. Bless you." Closed the chest and turned off the light. Some goodbyes don't need sound. Years later, Ada published a book. It wasn't about Bisi directly, but about reclaiming your voice after betrayal. She titled it, "The Middle is Where You Grow." During the launch, a journalist asked, "Is this story personal?" Ada smiled. "Aren't all stories personal?" The audience laughed. But in that moment, many women in the room understood what she truly meant. She didn't owe anyone specifics. Her healing was hers. And the story, though born from pain, had blossomed into purpose. That night, Chijioke wrapped his arms around her as they watched the stars from their backyard. "Your book is going to help so many women," he said. "I hope so," Ada replied. "Even if it just helps one girl see that she's not crazy, not weak, and not alone, then it's worth it." He kissed her forehead. "You've become a lighthouse." He chuckled. "That's funny. I used to feel like a shadow. But now," he said, "you shine." And Ada, smiling softly, knew that was true. On a quiet Sunday morning, Ada stood before a small group of young girls in a mentorship session. She held up a paper with a quote. "Not all friendships are forever. But everyone teaches you something." She looked at them and said, "Don't be afraid to outgrow people. It doesn't mean you're ungrateful, it means you're growing. You're allowed to protect your peace, even if the person hurting you calls it pride." One girl whispered, "I needed to hear that." Ada nodded. "I once did too." And just like that, the circle continued. Healing passed from hand to hand. In the end, Ada's story wasn't about losing a friend. It was about finding herself. She didn't wear scars like shame anymore. She wore them like armor. Not hard, not bitter, just strong in her softness. And whenever people asked, "What happened to that childhood friend you used to talk about?" she'd simply say, "We grew apart. And I grew deeper." No need for explanations. No need for blame. Just truth, grace, and growth. Because peace isn't just what you find, it's what you choose. And Ada had chosen it. Fully. Finally. Forever.